And joining us now to talk about the peace deal is Bryan Leib. He's a foreign policy analyst and the CEO of Henry Public Relations. What a historic morning so far, obviously, with the time difference. You wake up and all of these things have unfolded. Your initial reactions?
Carrie, it's a beautiful day, I think, for all of us, and all of us as Americans should be very proud of our president and of the administration and everyone involved in bringing these hostages home, regardless of one's political opinions. And I know we're a country full of many of them, but this is a beautiful day for all of us to see these hostages come home and to know that it was because of American leadership and because of President Trump's leadership that helped make it happen. And I've been up since 3 a.m. I watched the speech live. I think that was, listen, I've heard a lot of President Trump's speeches, both in person and on TV. That will probably go down in the history books as one of his best speeches ever, from a strength perspective, from a compassion perspective. It was a great speech, and it's a truly amazing morning that we're waking up to right now.
Yeah, if you get the sound bites, as we just played, of President Trump's speech, or you watch the long form, it almost has a completely different feel, very graciously laying praise on many of the people in the room responsible for coming to that moment. I'd like you to comment a little bit on his words about Bibi, about Witkoff, about Kushner, and as well Marco Rubio.
I mean, he singled out a lot of people throughout that speech, and I think that's very much who President Trump is. That's maybe not what some of the media want people to think he is, but that's the kind of leader that President Trump is. There's a lot of talk, by the way, Carrie, about this Nobel Peace Prize. Can I tell you something? I don't think President Trump really even cares about the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it would be great if he got it, but I don't think he needs it, because I think at the end of the day, and he has said this many times, and I believe it, peace is the ultimate prize. And now we're in a position where we are on the cusp of really some long-lasting peace. And he shared the stage. He shared this moment with his son-in-law, with Jared Kushner, with Steve Witkoff, with Marco Rubio, with all of his people. Because, listen, it can't just be one person, that gets this done. Whether it was on our side, the Trump administration, or Prime Minister Netanyahu and Ron Dermer and so many other people on the side. This took a real teamwork, a real team effort, and I think that's why we were able to get to this moment, that we're at today, where the hostages are now home. They're being reunited with their families, and now President Trump is going to Egypt to have what could be a massive Abraham Accord signing. I mean, time will tell with what happens very soon, but we are very much on the cusp of really a new dawn in the Middle East. It's because of President Trump and his partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah, one thing that President Trump mentioned specifically about himself and Netanyahu was the endurance and the perseverance through very sharp criticism on the military actions into Gaza City, the pressure campaign on Hamas. Of course, Trump then did an end around diplomatically with all of the Arab countries to put pressure on Hamas, not just militarily, but also diplomatically. I want to get your take, though, on that perseverance that it took. Just last month at the UN, it seemed like the entire world was against Israel, but they stayed the course and ultimately got the result that they were hoping for.
I mean, I think if we're being honest, I think a lot of the world still is against Israel, and they probably, always will be. That's kind of, been how it's been for a long time now. But you're right. It definitely took perseverance, and it took two strong leaders to stay the course. And there's been a lot of fake news out there, and a lot of fake headlines about how Trump and Bibi have had many falling outs, and they weren't talking to each other, and Trump was cursing at Bibi. None of that was true. And at the end of the day, these are two men that were deeply committed to bringing the hostages home, to ending this conflict, to creating a new day of peace in the Middle East. And I don't think this could have been possible with anyone else. The two of them working together, Carrie, with Trump and Netanyahu, it's a really special partnership that I don't think we've ever really seen in politics, at least that I've seen in my lifetime. So they were persistent, they were strong, and that's what got this done.
Trump is calling this the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East, kind of piggybacking off of his theme for peace through strength and his policy in America. I want to get your view on the next stage. You know, the first point or two of a 20-point plan has been realized, but Trump has really done a lot of work with Qatar, with the United Arab Emirates, with the Abraham Accords. What does the potential for truly demilitarizing the West Bank and Gaza and going more toward a, what he would call like the golden age, something where, there's mass construction, there's thriving communities, there's economic opportunity and education for Palestinians?
Well, there's a lot to build on. The Abraham Accords was wildly successful, and I think President Trump even made a comment during his speech about, how throughout the last 2 years, the Abraham Accords have remained intact. The countries that were involved, like the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco and Sudan, they never severed ties with Israel and continued forward with the Abraham Accords. So I think that the groundwork has been laid for more normalization, and it definitely is the golden age. I mean, but we have to be honest with ourselves and speak the truth about the situation, and that none of this is going to be able to happen if Hamas is not disarmed. If the radical elements that are in the West Bank or anywhere else in the Middle East, if they're not disarmed, we're going to keep kind of going back to the well on this. So I think that we're finally at a point now where these countries are willing to come together. They're willing to make peace. And I'm watching the live shot now, and it looks like President Trump is coming back, and he's going to be on his way to Egypt. So, and I mean, the countries that he's assembled for this is really mind-boggling. So, again, the groundwork is there, Carrie, with the Abraham Accords, and now it's just time to build on top of that. And I think these two leaders, along with Arab leaders, I think they can get it done.
And I'm very excited to observe and talk about this next phase. But I do want to go back to the Israeli speeches made thanking Trump for taking out the Fordo facility. There were many steps along the way to even have the opportunity to have this moment come to fruition. I want you to discuss the importance of taking out the Fordo facility.
Well, it's more than just that. I mean, the Fordo facility and the other Iranian nuclear sites, and also crippling a lot of the Iranian infrastructure. As the president said, that was very important. If the Iranian regime still had the resources that they've had for the last couple of years, it might not be possible to be at a point where we're at right now. If the Iranian regime was as strong as they were, perhaps Hamas, who, by the way, their main funder is the regime in Tehran, maybe they would have kept holding on and wouldn't have made any moves like they're making now. So I think the president's entirely correct. Eliminating the Iranian regime is a big thing, and it's hopefully going to create the runway now for a lot of these Arab countries. Who, by the way, the quiet part out loud, Carrie, is that the Israelis have had warm ties with a lot of these Arab countries for a long time now, but it's always been in the darkness, behind the scenes. Saudi Arabia is a perfect example of that. The Israelis and the Saudis have been cooperating for years together. So I think that now the runway is there, especially with the Iran regime neutered as they are, to really see this lasting peace take root.
Yeah, and as we're discussing this, we see President Trump about to board Air Force One, saying his parting words of appreciation to the Netanyahu family, getting set to go, as you said, join quite a panel of countries that he's put together in Egypt. What do you expect to happen today, particularly at these meetings?
I really don't know. I mean, it's such a new world that we're living in, where you have Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Azerbaijan and all these other Muslim countries that are all coming together for this peace summit. But I think one thing for sure, and I think President Trump previewed this a little bit in his speech, he is going to be calling on them to officially recognize the state of Israel and to normalize relations with the state of Israel. I think he very much wants to build on the Abraham Accords that were wildly successful, and that really is the best way, I think, for all these countries to come together, is to recognize that everyone has the right to exist and focus on ways that they can partner together, from intelligence sharing to business to commerce to trade, all of the above. So I don't. Yeah, it's such a new moment in time where President Trump going to Egypt with 20 plus countries. No one knows what's going to happen. But I think we can all be very confident that President Trump is going to be looking to call on these Arab countries to officially recognize Israel, lay down their arms, and make this lasting peace that we all hope can happen.
Yeah, when you think about Trump referenced the extraordinary wealth that is in the Middle East, and you think of the thriving cities of Doha and Dubai, and how that wealth is just a drop in the bucket to what the total amount of wealth there is. What are the prospects of a rebuilt Gaza? What could that become?
I think everyone is on board to rebuild Gaza, but it goes back to a previous comment that I made that none of this is going to be possible unless Hamas is removed and unless Hamas is disarmed. None of these Arab countries, in my opinion, are going to invest a single cent into Gaza, nor will we as the Americans invest any money if Hamas remains in any kind of leadership position. So that's really kind of the elephant in the room right now, and that's the next stage of the deal. We've all been laser focused on getting the hostages back, and that's amazing. And now we have to see, how Hamas disarms, whether it's peacefully or not. And I think that's kind of the elephant in the room right now, and what we all should be looking to see in terms of what happens next.
Yeah, how will they be disarmed? How will the PLA change its ways and no longer? It's reported that they pay the families of those who martyr into terrorist acts. So how does that change? Money alone, of course, doesn't solve that, because it's money that built all those tunnels underground instead of building schools and hospitals and all the things that a thriving democracy depends on. But it seems like this, if there ever was an opportunity to break the cycle, this appears to be that moment. Besides Trump and Egypt, who are the key players in your view to get to realize much of what Trump's 20-point plan is offering?
Well, I think the UAE and Saudi Arabia are going to play big roles. And I also want to shine a quick little spotlight on the country of Azerbaijan. I was just in Azerbaijan actually just last week for the first time ever. It's a Muslim majority country, but it's a very moderate country. And they play a very special role in supporting Israel and being a bridge between Israel and some of the Arab countries. So I think I think Azerbaijan could potentially play a really big role here in bringing potentially Turkey and maybe some other countries along here, and Turkey as well. I mean, Turkey's a big country, can play a really big role here. So there's a lot of different countries, Arab countries, that can really come together to make this happen. But I think we're going to see UAE, Saudi Arabia, also the Qataris as well. The Qataris are going to want to have a big seat at the table. So we'll see. It's going to be quite the moment here in a couple hours when President Trump is wheels down in Egypt for the next summit.
Indeed, and one unique characteristic of President Trump is, if you look at a country like Qatar, known to have hosted Hamas leadership, allowed them to live lavish lifestyles in their hotels and casinos, and then you think of a country like Turkey, where the leader there, someone who controversial, if nothing else, but Trump found a way to bring them into the fold and not sort of look at their faults, but look at the opportunities. How has his approach been different than previous leaders of the country, of America?
I think he's been successful because well before President Trump entered politics, he was a deal maker. And to be able to be a deal maker in New York City, of all places, sometimes you have to make compromises. Sometimes you're sitting across the table with other people that you really wouldn't want to be sitting across the table, but you have to make a deal. So I think President Trump brought that expertise into the first administration as the 45th president, and now in the 47th administration as well, just taking a different approach to things. When you try and shove a square peg into a round hole over and over and over again, you're going to get the same result. And I think what we saw with President Trump with the Abraham Accords is that he tried a different approach, and that approach worked. So you're going to see the same thing happen now. And at the end of the day, the guy's a deal maker. The guy's a relationship builder. He knows how to bring people together. He has a lot of skills, but I think probably one of his most powerful skills is relationship building and being able to bring people together.
Yeah, and as we see him just enter Air Force One, and now we see Jared Kushner and daughter Ivanka Trump boarding Air Force One. I want to reflect just a moment before we move on to what this day in Israel meant. We saw people holding, flags with Trump, reconfiguring the MAGA hat into a, Trump and peace hat. People were highly divided in Israel about the way to achieve all their goals, which was security, but also some people were willing to give up some security guarantees just to get the hostages home. And to get both of those things, it seems like, with the exception of the two hecklers in the Knesset who were swiftly removed, a very unified Israel today. And what are your observations on that? And does that continue? It's politics are brutal everywhere. What does the future of Israel look like?
Politics, you're right, politics are brutal everywhere. I think that this certainly is a moment for the Israeli people, regardless of their political affiliations, for all of them to come together and have a moment of unity. I think it's very similar, if I could draw a quick comparison, to how we as a country came together after the 9/11 attacks. There was so much unity throughout our country. I think you'll see a lot of that in Israel, but politics is politics, and at the end of the day, there's certain people inside of Israel that really do not like Netanyahu, and listen, we have the same thing here in America. But I think this is a joyous day. It's an amazing day. Earlier on a different network, I took this pin off. I've been wearing this pin on my lapel pin for 2 years now on national television and speaking engagements, and it was because of President Trump that I was finally able to take this pin off, because the hostages are home. So I think we should all be just very happy and very grateful that President Trump played such an amazing role, and that we as the American people also played such an amazing role to make this happen, to bring these hostages back together. It's a beautiful day, beautiful day.
Yeah, and on college campuses, there are all these divestment of Israel campaigns because of the war in Gaza, in Hollywood as well, and we sort of have come to a new place. Do you expect all the flights to return to Israel? Many of airlines, canceled their flights. One of the greatest technology centers and pharmaceutical centers, Israel, does, with all those people in the military hopefully getting back into civilian life, what does relations and economics look like between the U.S. and Israel now that, as you've taken that pin off your own lapel, what comes next?
Well, I think it's going to continue to be strong. I mean, relations from all aspects between the U.S. and Israel have remained very strong, and they're going to keep getting stronger. So it's a moment for, I think, for all of us as Americans and Israelis to just really come together and celebrate what's happening. And the nonsense that's been happening on our college campuses, let's be honest, it's not going to stop anytime soon. Anti-Semitism is one of the world's oldest hatreds, and it's always been there. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But what is happening now is there is a peace deal that has happened, and hopefully much more to come. And we should all be very happy and looking forward with an open mind to what happens in the days and weeks to come here.
Well, Bryan, we're sharing your joy. We appreciate you sharing time with us on this historic day. Great to speak with you, Bryan Leib.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Have a great day.